At 16, I found myself in a distressing situation when my parents pressured me into handing over a $17,000 inheritance from my grandmother to my older sister Mia, who is 6 years my senior. Mia has always had a knack for making my life miserable without any apparent reason, often bullying me under the guise of sibling behavior, a dynamic our parents dismissed as typical, often accusing me of being too sensitive. This pattern of disregard became painfully clear a few years back during a family trip to the beach when I was just 11. Mia and her friends, who seemed to share her disdain for me, played a dangerous prank on me by shoving a plastic bag over my head and pushing me into the water. Despite the peril I faced, struggling to remove the bag and swim to safety, my family dismissed the incident as a harmless joke, further minimizing my distress. The culmination of these experiences, especially the forced relinquishment of my inheritance to fund Mia's business dreams, left me feeling isolated and betrayed by my family. The recent photos from Mia's successful launch party, which she sent to spite me, only deepened the wound. Now, my focus is clear: excel academically, attend college, and distance myself from these toxic family dynamics. My resolve is to forge a path forward where trust and respect define my relationships, unlike the ones I've endured at home. About a year ago, my grandmother, who was my dad's mother, passed away. A few months back, we finally settled her estate. She left most of her assets, including her house, to my parents, while my sister, Mia, and I each received $17,000. My grandmother also left me a sapphire ring, which she promised me after I admired it once, calling it just a ring with the blue stone in her will. Fortunately, my parents didn't realize its true value. Although I had plans to save my inheritance for the future, my parents had different ideas. They explained that Mia was starting her own business and needed all the support she could get. They were already contributing and expected me to do the same. Despite my protests considering Mia's long-standing cruelty towards me, the pressure mounted. My dad eventually issued an ultimatum: support Mia or he wouldn't pay for my college or allow me to return home. Faced with this threat and needing peace to focus on my finals, I reluctantly agreed to hand over my inheritance. Now, 3 months later, I've been accepted into a college of my choice, and my parents have agreed to cover all my expenses, including tuition and living costs, since I'll be out of state. It seemed like giving up the $17,000 might have been a practical compromise after all. However, the situation still sits uncomfortably with me. Recently, Mia threw a launch party for her new store of venturing clothes and accessories, deemed revolutionary by her and her college friends, the same ones involved in the beach incident. Seeing them succeed with a business partly funded by my forced contribution reignites old frustrations and guilt, leaving me to ponder the true cost of family obligations and my own concessions. Mia might have had a promising career ahead, but things took a turn after her launch party, an event I wasn't invited to. My parents claimed it was adults only, given my age of 16, but that excuse sounded flimsy to me. The next day, Mia sent me a slew of photos from the event, rubbing in the fact that I missed it. Along with the photos, she cheekily thanked me for my contribution of $17,000, which she claimed made the party possible. Seeing those photos annoyed me, but one face in the crowd really caught my attention. It was a guy who looked vaguely familiar, though he had grown a stubble and gained some weight. After comparing with my own photos, I confirmed it was indeed her high school ex-boyfriend, John. They started dating when she turned 19 and he was already 22, which was creepy enough. Despite our parents initially forbidding the relationship due to the age gap and his questionable timing, Mia dated him secretly. John's history was sketchy. He had been caught trying to steal from his father's company, which led to their breakup after just 8 months. He moved to Wyoming to work on his uncle's farm laborer, leaving Mia heartbroken. She even pleaded with our dad to help John get a job locally to avoid the movie, but Dad refused, insisting she cut all ties with him. The day she had to break up with John was chaotic. Mia begged our parents to reconsider, promising that John would change. Dad was furious about her disobedience and the dubious nature of her relationship, while Mom just cried. Amidst all this, I was sidelined, told to stay in my room and keep out of the drama. Although I wasn't considered part of the family when it came to discussing serious matters, I was often within earshot when business plans were discussed at home. Mia and my parents didn't hesitate to talk about the business around me, perhaps because they didn't take my presence seriously. I was well aware that getting credit analyst for her shoe and accessory store was a struggle, particularly because her friends' parents were skeptical about pouring money into such a narrow venture. One holdout was the mother of Mia's friend, a single parent who was reluctant to risk her savings on what she viewed as a potentially unstable business. This friend's mother wanted her daughter to gain more work experience before committing to entrepreneurship. Despite her reservations, she had tentatively agreed to invest later if the initial months proved successful. Knowing the business was on thin ice financially and could barely survive past the first few months without additional funding, I realized just how precarious their situation was. The discovery of John, Mia's questionable ex, in the background of the launch party photos sparked an idea. Given the already fragile state of credit analyst confidence, any association with someone of John's reputation could be the tipping point. Using a fake social media account, I contacted the hesitant credit analyst's mother. I asked her to use Facebook's call feature to keep my identity hidden, maintaining anonymity. After some hesitation, driven by curiosity, she reached out. During our conversation, I explained who John was and shared his dubious past, underlining the potential risks involved with the business's current associations. Initially skeptical, her attitude shifted as I sent her old photos of Mia and John, corroborating my claims. I made it clear that my only intention was to inform her, leaving the decision to invest in her hands. After providing the information, I ended the call, leaving her to ponder the implications for her potential investment. It seems like she made a tough choice, opting out of a commitment and advising her daughter to do the same. Since I reached out over the phone, the situation has escalated. Nobody suspects I'm the catalyst, but Mia has been urgently contacting our parents, hoping they'd convince the mother to reconsider her decision. Her friends are upset too. They're disappointed she kept such significant news from them. Additionally, Mia reunited with John but hid his true identity, which displeased our parents and everyone else, leaving her in a difficult spot. Everyone seems to be distancing themselves from her, upset by her actions. As much as part of me wants to relish the turmoil since she tormented me during our childhood, I'm finding no joy in her distress. Seeing the impact on her whom the business meant so much to makes me question if my actions were too spiteful. I overheard our parents discussing their disappointment. They're so upset that they're even considering withdrawing their investment from her business due to broken trust. It's a rarity for them to be this upset with her, marking a significant shift. Amidst this, I've been reflecting on whether I should feel guilty for influencing a potential credit analyst to withdraw, triggered by past grievances. I appreciated everyone's responses to my post. They've convinced me to stay quiet about my involvement. If our parents ever found out, I'd likely be kicked out, especially since I'm almost 19 and depend on them for college funding. It's been a week since my last update, and Mia's situation has worsened. The credit analyst's withdrawal influenced her daughter to do the same, leaving Mia and her business in jeopardy. One of her friends is now demanding a larger share of the business, 70 to 50, after losing trust in Mia over the secret involving John. This friend learned that John had stolen from his own father's company, and despite Mia's attempts to maintain her fabricated story, no one believes her. She even claimed the revealing photos were doctored. But this excuse hasn't spared her from daily reprimands from our parents, who, despite their disappointment, continue to support her as they meet with their lawyer each evening to navigate the crisis. Mia's situation might lead to her losing shares in her business, and there's a real risk they could shut it down due to unresolved conflicts. I've decided to stop dwelling on these outcomes. Interestingly, Mia's troubles have shifted focus away from me, granting me the freedom to do as I please. I've been enjoying this newfound anonymity, especially now as I savor my last few weeks at home before college. With everyone preoccupied, I've embraced the liberty of coming and going unnoticed. Whether I'm spending nights at a friend's house or just out late, nobody at home seems to mind or even realize. This has been the silver lining in all the turmoil. It's given me space and peace. However, I'm slightly anxious about whether this family drama might affect my parents' willingness to finance my college education, a concern I hadn't fully appreciated until now. If it does impact their decision, it could complicate things for me, though it seems Mia is facing far harsher consequences. 3 weeks after my initial post, and just when I thought I was out of the woods, the situation escalated again. The woman I had contacted caved under pressure and indirectly exposed my involvement to Mia. She told Mia about an anonymous call and photos she received, which led Mia straight back to me. Just yesterday, an encounter with Mia turned physical when she confronted me as I was about to leave the house. It got heated. She accused me of sabotaging her, pushing me as she entered. I reacted defensively, and the confrontation escalated quickly. Now, I'm worried about the repercussions of my actions as she's vowed to retaliate. The whole situation has become a tangled mess, and I'm caught right in the middle, questioning if my previous actions were worth the chaos they've caused. Despite my inner panic during the confrontation with Mia, I managed to keep a composed face, vehemently denying any involvement in the accusations she hurled at me. I argued that I barely knew her friends' parents, having only met them briefly at a lunch before their store opened. My denial was forceful, my voice steady, even though I was fabricating every word. The argument escalated quickly, our voices rising over each other until our parents stepped in to separate us. But Mia was relentless, convinced I had sabotaged her business prospects. She demanded to search through my phone and laptop. I put up a strong resistance, not because I had something to hide, but because consenting too easily would seem suspicious. Fortunately, I had erased all traces from my devices that could link me to the anonymous call. Mia assumed I had used my personal number, unaware of the disposable Facebook account I had created and subsequently deleted after reaching out to her friend's mom. Even after a thorough search of my social media and electronic devices turned up clean, Mia's frustration only intensified. She accused me of deliberately wiping my devices to cover my tracks. I countered, saying her paranoia was unfounded and it was unfair to lash out at me just because her business was at risk. The situation eventually calmed, and Mia, overwhelmed, broke down in tears. I thought the worst was over, but then my parents pulled me aside for a private talk. They admitted they found no evidence to support Mia's claims, but they still believed her, convinced that no one else could have known the details necessary to make those calls. My heart sank as they concluded it had to be me, especially after I'd previously expressed my frustration about how Mia had treated me. To my dismay, they decided to withdraw their financial support from my college, leaving me to fend for myself. They wanted no more arguments. They had made up their minds. Desperate, I started yelling and crying, trying to elicit some sympathy or a reconsideration, but it was futile. Unlike when Mia showed emotion, my outburst was met with indifference. After a harrowing half-hour of pleading met with silence, I retreated, realizing the gravity of my isolation in this family conflict. After retreating to my room, overwhelmed by everything, I still possess a sapphire ring my grandmother left me, which could potentially fund my first semester of college if I decide to sell it. However, I'm uncertain if it could cover all 3 years, so I'm considering taking out a student loan and seeking a family member to co-sign. With the college payment deadline just weeks away, I can't afford to leave anything to chance. Since my last life story a month ago, a few days after my parents decided not to finance my education, I realized I had no reason to stay or maintain contact with them. I packed my bags and moved in with a friend whose family warmly welcomed me. My friend, who was planning to take a gap year and work in her dad's business, had no plans to use her college fund. Her parents, knowing me for years and considering me like a daughter, generously offered to use it for my education. Initially hesitant, I accepted their kindness but resolved to repay them someday. Now, I'm on campus, thankfully without needing to sell my grandmother's ring. Deeply grateful to my friend and her parents. As for Mia, her situation didn't improve. She ended up selling her shares in the business, which are now entirely owned by her former partners. She had to exit the venture she initiated as trust had eroded beyond repair. Though she might be upset, it was necessary, and my parents could do nothing to alter the outcome. The future of the store seems uncertain, but that's no longer my concern. Disconnected from my family and with no ties left to Mia, I'm fully focused on my own future, grateful for the unexpected support I've received and the new path I'm forging in college.